Good afternoon to everybody present here. I am Dr. R. Varsha, doing my second year post-graduation from Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, and I am presenting this case titled Lurking in the Shadows under the mentorship of Professor Lata Ravichandran and team and Dr. Ranjit Kumar, who is a pediatric neurologist consultant. So moving on to the case. A 12-year-old child, a girl child, presented to us with multiple seizures. A little bit about her background history. So, this child was developmentally normal until 10 months of age. She presented with features suggestive of acute meningitis and was admitted and evaluated outside. An extensive workup was done. A particular organism could not be identified. HSV workup was done and was negative. So the child was conservatively managed with IV antibiotics and anti-epileptic medications. The radiology, which was the MRI brain done, was suggestive of acute encephalitis with post-encephalitic changes. So the discharging diagnosis made was post-encephalitis sequelae with an unknown etiology. So the investigations done at the time of admission, LP showed cells of 5, all of which were lymphocytes. The protein and sugar values were normal, and the blood routine showed HB to be 7.7, but the total counts were also normal. So this was a picture of the MRI brain done at discharge. So then she went to a period of normalcy. From then onwards, the child was being followed up in Srihar. So the child was gaining milestones, going to a special school, and was ambulant. She was at her best functional capacity. That is, before this current presentation of illness, the child was having some amount of intellectual disability, was partly dependent upon parents for daily living activities, but was also able to carry out certain activities on her own. So this origin of current illness was when she presented to us in November 2019. So the child presented with fever and cough for 4 days and was initially being evaluated for a respiratory infection. During the course of her stay, she developed multiple episodes of seizures in the form of GTCS requiring levetiracetam, phenytoin, and topiramate. The child had no further seizures following treatment and the fever spikes settled. But after a brief afebrile period, she had another episode of recurrent fever, following which she developed altered sensorium, positional preference towards the right with a dystonic posturing. So the MRI brain was repeated and she was found to have bilateral frontal cerebral calcification, frontal gliosis and atrophy with acute or subacute infarct, which was suggestive of a encephalitic sequelae which was attributed to her illness at 1 year of age when she first presented. So the investigations done at this time of admission showed WBCs of 4 cells, but culture showed no growth. And biochemical analysis, the sugars were normal, the protein was mildly elevated. It was 74.9 milligram per deciliter and chloride was near normal. So the child was receiving treatment with IV ceftriaxone and multiple anti-epileptic medications. Then in a span of 1 month, December 2019, she developed right-sided focal seizure in the form of twitching of the right upper limb and right-sided gaze associated with involuntary twitching of the eye. Additional anti-epileptics were added. So she was on a cocktail of anti-epileptic medications, including valproate, phenytoin, topiramate, levetiracetam, and frisium. But the child had persistent LRA, which was attributed to a neurological illness causing the GER and aspirations. So the repeat MRI brain done now showed ill-defined cortical-based enhancing lesion in the right temporoparietal region. So the DDs considered based upon radiology were, could it be a tumefactive demyelination, or is it some sort of a chronic infection or chronic neuromyelioidosis? So we did a blood routine. Now the counts were slightly elevated. It was 16,800 with a polymorph of 92.2, but the blood culture showed no growth. In the LP done, WBCs were 8 cells per cubic millimeter, which polymorphs were 60% and lymphocytes were 40 and RBCs were 10. So biochemically, protein was maybe a mildly elevated 56.6 and CSF PCR HSV was yet again negative, and Burkholderia pseudomallei was negative, which rules out neuromyelioidosis. An AFB gene expert were done, but no tubercle bacilli was identified. And on a direct smear, we observed occasional pus cells with no organism. CSF culture was negative, fungal stain and culture was negative, and demyelination workup were also negative. But since we initially considered the possibility of a demyelination, we had started treatment with IV methylprednisolone and oral steroids. So now, since demyelination was kept as a possibility, that is why we empirically started treatment with IV steroids. And surprisingly, the neurological status improved by February. But due to the COVID pandemic and strict lockdown, parents were not able to bring the child to the hospital for a follow-up. So we were communicating with the family via telecommunication services, and we tapered and stopped the steroids. But to our utter dismay, after stopping it, the child developed seizure again. So now is the present scenario, which is in June 2020. She presented with a generalized floppiness of the body and inability to sit or stand up by herself. She had no history of fever or altered sensorium or sleep disturbance at this episode. On examination, the bulk was normal. Power was found to be 3/5 in all limbs. The deep tendon reflexes were brisk in both the upper and lower limbs, and plantar reflex were extensor. The child was sensitive to pain, which we observed while inserting the IV cannula, but others could not be assessed. Cranial nerve, there was no significant deficit, and autonomic examination was also normal. There were no meningeal signs. So here is a picture of the MRI brain. We can observe gliotic changes as denoted by the arrow marks, and we can see it in the right temporal region. And also we saw this edema. So it was like an expansile lesion, and it was extending up till the corpus callosum. We did an MRI with an MRS. Here you can see the gliotic changes. So the final report was a right temporoparietal occipital lobe expansile lesion involving the cortex and the white matter extending to the corpus callosum, along with bilateral frontal atrophy. So DD is considered what? Tumor-like lesion, or could it be some sort of chronic granulomatous encephalitis? So to summarize, because there was a lot of information, this is a 12-year-old girl who presented to us with cognitive decline, speech regression, and seizure. So her first episode at 1 year, she had acute encephalitis. We could not identify an organism. She had a post-encephalitic sequelae, which led to the November 2019 episode, where we saw a progressive encephalopathy, but there was no fever, no raised ICP features. And in December 2019, she had right focal seizure, posturing, irritability. Diagnosis of tumefactive demyelination was suspected. She was treated with methylprednisolone and oral steroids. And this is the current scenario in June 2020, where MRI brain was suggestive of a chronic granulomatous encephalitis, but this was also a probability. So an extensive workup was done. Again, the LP showed WBC, RBC. Cultures, there were no organism isolated. Viral PCR for HSV was negative. CSF fungal stains and fungal culture were negative. CSF ACE was done to rule out sarcoidosis, and TB workup again yielded negative. So then, based on the clinico-radiological diagnosis, we could only stick with the chronic granulomatous encephalitis, but we did not have a conclusive answer to her problem. So what next? Here is a child who has post-encephalitic sequelae, who had a relapse after steroid treatment, but responded transiently to it, did not respond to any antibiotics, and CSF could not isolate any pathogen. And we had a challenge, a big challenge during the pandemic, because one, the father was a daily wage worker, so there were financial constraints, and they did not have any government or private health insurance. The COVID pandemic was disrupting our routine hospital services, and a chronic neurological and respiratory issues posed a challenge for the anesthetists. So we got together a multidisciplinary team, which involved the general pediatrics team, the PICU consultant, our pediatric neurologist, infectious disease specialist, neurosurgeon, pediatric pulmonologist, neuroanesthesia, and a social worker. So a major decision was made, and we went ahead with a lesional brain biopsy for diagnostic evaluation. So the biopsy showed plenty of microglial infiltration, which was suggestive of inflammation. But no organism was visualized, and acid-fast bacilli was not detectable in the brain tissue. But fortunately, we sent the brain tissue for a microorganism analysis, including a viral PCR. And that is when we had our eureka moment. The child tested positive for HSV1 and negative for HSV2 and varicella zoster virus. So to reconfirm, we had also sent the slides to AIIMS Neuropathology Department, who were kind enough to run the test for us. And they had HSV antibody staining done, which was strongly positive and confirmed the diagnosis of a HSV encephalitis. So our final diagnosis was chronic granulomatous herpetic encephalitis in a child with post-encephalitic sequelae. So the child was treated with IV acyclovir along with oral steroids for a total of 21 days, and she is being continued on oral acyclovir for 3 months. The oral steroids were gradually tapered and stopped. The child dramatically improved, her seizures stopped, she began interacting with her parents well, the tone improved, she started ambulating again with minimal support, and was able to do limited activities with parental help. So our plan is to repeat the MRI and to decide about the treatment continuation. In view of recurrent LRA presentation, immunodeficiency workup was planned, has been done, and has come out negative. So this is an article. When I did a literature review, I found out about chronic granulomatous herpes simplex encephalitis in children. It was basically done on 3 children. There were 2 children who initially presented in the first 2 years with herpes encephalitis. But then later on in life, they went on to develop an intractable epilepsy that led to neurosurgery, biopsy, and then the biopsy revealed findings similar to us. The other was an infant who had like a facial rash because of HSV2. Initially treated with topical acyclovir, then the child was all right until 2 months of age, then again had a non-specific illness and died a few days later. So in that child, when a necropsy was done, severe granulomatous encephalitis was identified. So this, brings about and highlights the rarity of this, but which was found outside in other countries like America and others. But there has been no similar cases which has been reported in India, making this a very rare entity. So there are a couple of take-home messages which I want to stress upon. So HSV encephalitis is an acute illness, but rarely it can progress into a chronic progressive encephalitic illness, which will present as seizures, intractable seizure and neurological deficit. An MRI brain can present with a progressive enhancing lesion, and this can lead to the suspicion of either like a tumor or inflammation. It can pose like that. And this is a rare entity in pediatric patients, but nevertheless, it has to be picked up to initiate prompt treatment. And acyclovir is the drug of choice, which has to be given either for 14 days or 21 days. But unfortunately, 2/3 of its survivors end up with neurological deficit. So that comes to the end of my presentation. I would like to acknowledge our team of doctors, the unit to AIIMS Neuropath Department. With that, I'll end my slide. Thank you.